Welcome everyone to or welcome back or welcome to what is it, six, seven? To one of our many sessions. I'm Jair Carlos, an intern for what's the new name? Latino Youth Leadership, and this is Luis. Will be the host for our.
Hello, everyone. I am co-hosting with Jair. I am also part of Latino Youth Leadership. I've been an intern here for a couple, maybe a year, maybe a year and a half. And I am also a student at WCB studying mechanical engineering. And this is our last session of the year. So thank you so much for coming, being able to make it, taking time out of your day to be here. We really, really, really appreciate it. And I would like to introduce our host for this session's for today's session, Miranda and Melissa. If you could introduce yourselves, that'd be awesome.
I'll go first because it looks like I beat Melissa to the unmute button. So I am Miranda Heckler. Me and Melissa both do the same thing. But we work with Columbia River Mental Health Services as youth peer navigators, which is always a fun time to explain, but basically we're peer counselors. And so we just work with young adults one-on-one, and means that we've been in some type of mental health service ourselves and kind of able to relate on that peer level. And then I'm gonna pass it back to Melissa because she's in charge of the PowerPoint.
Okay, hello, I'm Melissa. I'm also a youth peer navigator. So yeah, basically what Miranda said, that we're basically peer counselors for youth who are involved in some sort of mental health service at Columbia River Mental Health Services. So that's our introduction. We're gonna start off this presentation with the Menti. If you're not familiar with the Menti, it's if you go onto menti.com, I believe, and you put in this code, it allows you a space to answer these questions. The two questions that we have are, what do you know about seasonal depression? And then how do you feel talking about mental health? Also, I just spaced that I didn't even say what we're presenting on. So we're presenting on seasonal affective disorder, which is also called seasonal depression. So sorry, brain fart.
Seasonal depression. So far we have that people get depressed during a specific season. Also, if for some reason Menti is not working for you, the question is up on the screen, and so you can also type it in the chat. Or if you just want to unmute and talk, I'm super okay with not talking a ton. Some other answers are that it affects people during certain seasons. It doesn't happen during just winter. I know our area has higher levels of seasonal depression, I think because of our weather around this time of year. I don't know much about why. That's pretty much what I knew about seasonal depression first too. I was like, everyone in Washington is sad, and I don't know what's going on because I came from Arizona where that was not the case. Mood changes through seasons. Yes, that it's higher in winter. These are all awesome. And I also appreciate that people are posting. I know it's trendy. I'm interested in more about that. If anybody casually want to type that in the chat, I'm super interested. That you get sad during fall and winter. One thing we're going to talk about is that it's not only during fall and winter, but that's definitely when it's most commonly talked about. And actually up until pretty recently, I didn't really know that it wasn't just during fall and winter. Let's see, how do I scroll down? Oh, easy, just like that. That anything can affect your mood, especially the weather. True. Depression during the seasons, like feeling down for the summer, winter, spring, or weather in general. I almost said generational. Loneliness when there is cloudy and rainy weather. Ooh, that's a good one too, specifically talking about the loneliness. I appreciate all the answers. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anyone. Lack of sun levels makes one sad. Yes. Vitamin D, there's a ton of research behind that one. All right. I don't really know much about seasonal depression, but I think it's loneliness and sadness during the cloudy, cold season. Yes. And so, what is happening, Menti? Stop being rude to me. Oh, I figured out how to work it, you guys. User error sometimes. Occurs with varying seasons. I don't know if I already said that one. Cool. Oh, it's because it's a touchscreen, you guys. I only half figured it out. Thanks for bearing with me. User error a lot. Okay. Looks like the answers slowed down. I'll stop talking. If anyone, if they want to just like unmute and talk, give that opportunity.
So if you weren't able to make it to on the Menti, you can always put in the chat as well or unmute yourself.
I'll move to the next question, but you are totally still able to answer that first one. And then the next question is, how do you view talking about mental health, or just like mental health as a whole? Definitely have gotten more courage to talk about mental health. Nice. I personally find it really hard to talk about my mental health. Yes. I think it's good. It can be awkward, but I feel relieved talking about it when I trust someone enough to do so. Also love the idea of like having people to trust to talk about it. It can be scary sometimes. Absolutely. Usually I have to like talk about these for a lot longer, but you guys are awesome and just like going. It's important and we have conversations, but then never act on bettering it. Ooh, that's a good point. Like sometimes it can be easy to talk about mental health, but then the idea of like, so now, like the now what? It can be difficult to talk about it with others, but I think it's something important to take care of. Yes, it's nice to have a safe space. Like these sessions start addressing mental health. Well, I second this being a safe space to talk about it. I'm very open about, I'm very open about talking about mental health. I feel like it's not talked about much, but I feel like it's a way to get open and sometimes let go. Yes. I also like the variation in like how like comfort level, which is super real because mental health is a super vulnerable topic. I think now mental health is more talked about, so it's easier to open up to my friends and family than I could have even like 2 years ago. These are all so good. Over time, it has become easier to talk about mental health with the help of programs or events that talk about mental health. It's true. It's like one of those things that if you don't really hear people talking about it, then like it feels weird to talk about. Feel like it has been talked about a bit more so. It's been more of an open conversation. Yeah. I feel like, I wonder if that's just like more people are talking about it. So then people are like, oh, this is okay to talk about. And then it just keeps happening, kind of like a little snowball effect. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up as I'm talking to keep talking. I think it's incredibly to talk about their mental health, but I struggle with it myself. Absolutely. It's never an easy topic. Like, well, I don't like that's not an easy topic, but given some more time. There's this option for background music on Menti for like the quizzes, and I just feel like that should be an option on this part too. Give everyone a little more time. Sometimes it feels so repetitive because people keep talking and raising awareness, but then and leaves us with what's next. I don't blame them though. That's true, because like it's this really important thing of like, okay, so now we're gonna start talking about it, but then like, what do you do after you've talked about it? We'll hopefully talk a little bit about that. So I'm hearing a lot of that. It's like kind of hard to talk about. Some people have some practice, are able to talk about it a little more, and it's over specifically like the past couple of years become a lot more common. Nice. All right. Looks like we have about the same amount of people that answered that last one. So, I think it's very scary for many to open up about, but it's something super important and it's starting to get normalized. Yes. I love it. Okay. Every time I think we should like go, like there's more answers. I love that. I think we're officially done with the people that want to answer. Reminder again that you can go in the chat. Thank you so much for all the answers. I love that. I could have just like stared at you for a lot longer because I'm like that teacher that's like, I can be quiet. Anyway, I'm gonna stop screen sharing and let Melissa talk and go back to the PowerPoint.
So we're basically here to talk about seasonal affective disorder. We could be talking about mental health as a big piece, but that would probably keep us here all night and tomorrow night. So we're just going to break it down to seasonal affective disorder, which is also known as seasonal depression or winter blues. So seasonal affective disorder is a type of major depression that gets triggered as the seasons change. And so one thing I saw that's been brought up a couple of times is that it doesn't always happen in the winter time. So it can happen in late fall and early winter, but it also can start in late spring and early summer. And it looks different for everyone who comes across it. So next one. Sorry. So for symptoms, a lot of these symptoms can start off mild, but then progress as the season goes on. It get worse and worse as the season goes on, as it gets for the winter time, if it gets darker, or for the summertime, if it gets hotter. So for fall and winter, some of the common symptoms are oversleeping, weight gain, tiredness, and appetite changes. And I read something that appetite changes, as in the fall and winter, you crave more carbs for some reason. And so that's why it's associated with a weight gain. And then for spring and summer, insomnia, poor appetite, weight loss, and agitation. And then overall, some seasonal affective disorder symptoms include feeling depressed most of the day, having trouble sleeping, which kind of ties into the oversleeping and insomnia, and then having low energy, and then changes in appetite and or weight. Okay, so there's not really any direct cause that is associated with seasonal depression. There's a lot of risk factors or just contributing factors that can be identified in people who do have seasonal depression. So one of the big ones is in the winter time, days become shorter and then it gets darker sooner. So usually around this time of year, it gets dark around 4 p.m. And so we don't really get to see the sunlight that much. And so that's a contributing factor to winter seasonal depression. Another factor into winter or late fall, early winter seasonal depression is the changes in melatonin. So in the wintertime, our bodies are actually developing more and more melatonin. So when it naturally does that because as it gets darker, our body just does that. And so we have changes in melatonin wanting us to sleep more, or having trouble sleeping when we're supposed to be sleeping. And then next is geography. So kind of tying in with what Miranda mentioned earlier, her being from Arizona and coming to Washington, she was like, why is this weather like this? Why are people sad? But it's proven that the further you are away from the equator, then the more you're at risk because you're seeing longer winter times. So we experience a long winter here in Washington. So we're actually we have an increase of risk because we live here all the way in Washington. And then also family history of major depressive disorders also increases our risk of having seasonal affective disorder. So own experiences.
So real quick, going back to just the contributing factors too, one thing that got brought up that for some reason I didn't add on there is that, so there's a lot of different weather changes that can happen, which is why it's so common, or why we hear about it a lot more in the Pacific Northwest during the winter time. But also as seasons change, there's different life stuff that's changing. And so I know for some people, the start of a school year, so around at the end of summer, people will start to have a lot more negative emotions. and be struggling a lot more. And so then those can be contributing factors, like different life events that always happen during like the winter. Sometimes it's more stressful because people have like different family events. So I also just like want to throw it out there that there can also be life events that affect it.
Yes, most definitely. So I have this little quote. It says, "I can't just be happy because it's a happy time of the year." Just relating back to like the seasonal depression when it hits wintertime is like, yeah, there's like also a lot of holidays going on, but we can't like suppress how we're feeling because it's supposed to be a happy time of the year, right? So I believe Jair and Luis had a poem to share today.
Yes, yeah. It's a really short poem that that we thought was cool, and it's small, and it's for anybody who's like who might be feeling down around this time of the year. Yeah, I'll be reading it, so please bear with me because I'm pulling it up on the screen. Okay. Happy holidays to everyone, but especially to you who sits alone and wonders how you will make it through. I know it's hard, but it will pass, as these times always do. And there's always hope that the next year will be a better one for you. Peace and love. And that's it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for being brave and reading that. I was really into the idea of finding a video specifically so I wouldn't have to worry about reading a poem. So I very much appreciate that you found one and read it. And I also like that it has kind of like an optimistic view of like, this is kind of right now, but that doesn't always have to be the case. I like that. And so the hope with this one goes back to what I was saying earlier of I'm super down to not be the one talking a whole bunch. And I think maybe the interns kind of want to talk a little bit about their experiences, or if people want to feel comfortable typing in the chat, you can type it directly to Melissa or me, and we can read it, but not say your name. Or if you're comfortable with everyone like knowing that it's your experience, you can just type it in the chat to everyone, whatever feels comfortable. I'll pass it to one of the interns.
Okay.
Oh.
I understand that we're also complete strangers, so if you guys feel comfortable passing that message to any of the interns and they can share on your behalf. But yeah, so the questions that we have, oh, Nora. Okay, sorry. Have you ever dealt with seasonal depression? And then how did that look like for you? And if you haven't, then that's okay. You don't have to share, but yes.
Hi, I will share a little bit. My name is Sam. I am one of the interns. I haven't really dealt with seasonal depression, but I know during the summertime, I get really frustrated and sad. And maybe it's because it's of the heat and like it makes me feel gross. But I also just don't like summer at all. And I really love the cold, raining weather. And it's also my birthday during winter time and all the holidays. So it's the opposite for me from like most of the crowd who feel down during winter. That's me during the summer, and it's a pain.
I'll be adding on too. So I'm Alma, and same with Sam. Summer is just not good for me. I constantly find myself like, if my friends want to hang out, I'll like make up excuses just because it's not that I don't want to hang out with them. It's just that I hate summer. I just don't feel up to it. I always feel down, and so I just make up excuses and just don't go out. So I feel very down during the summer. I love winter though, and I feel like it's mostly because of the celebrations that we celebrate, and that's what keeps me, going. But even then, I feel like there are times where like I feel down during winter. I feel like that could just be exams happening, but yeah, that's my experience.
both for sharing. I love hearing specifically about the summer experience because for myself, I generally, well, recently it's actually been not too bad because I discovered a hobby that I could do during the winter, but for a really long time, I really enjoy doing stuff outdoors. And so here, and I'm also kind of a baby with the rain. Like I like it, but I want to like be inside. And then when I'm inside all the time, that I get really sad because I'm like, do I just live in this room? And so recently I figured out that like I can do a hobby during the winter and it helps a lot. But for me, a lot of it, that was like, oh yeah, now I can't do the things I enjoy doing. But I also hear you with the heat, especially like last summer, it was so hot and I feel you on the being cranky.
I honestly didn't like know about too much about like seasonal affective disorder when it happens to people in the early or late spring, early summer, because I love summer. And so I was kind of surprised, but I understand a lot more. Like it can be like happen both times of the year. For me, I personally have it in the wintertime just because I hate the rain like so much. I refuse to wear a rain jacket. I refuse to own an umbrella. Like I just do not like it. And I always get like, oh, like, why don't you move? And I was like, I don't know, but the rain is what drives me away. So I usually like when it rains, I don't leave like my house or anything, and I just like stay inside. So it usually happens to me during this time. So yeah, that's my own experience with it. Alma said allergies also contribute to her disliking summer, makes everything 10 times worse. Yes, allergies are pain. I agree.
And I don't have anything in the chat on my end, but I want to check in with Melissa and the interns and see if anyone had messaged anyone. Spring rains are the best, though. I love them.
So far there hasn't, or at least on my end, nobody has like said anything to me personally. But I'd also like to add on to it or share, I guess, my own experience with it. I guess in the winters when I would probably get the most down. I feel down a lot, but throughout the year. But in the winter, like I like the rain. I don't mind it. I actually enjoy it. But I'd say what like makes me this most like depressed or like not like or makes me want to be more like secluded is like the lack of sunlight because of how quickly it gets dark. I don't know. I just feel like everything is like shorter. Like I have no time to do anything. So I just rather stay in my house and then like I just feel trapped in my house. But I can't go out because it's cold. And I like the cold. But yeah, and also like I think Alma had mentioned like school starting like the new semester because I mean we're all students and I mean I'm a college student, so it still applies to me to like fall semester starts and around like winter time is when like we start getting like tests and things like that, so it's a lot of like stress. So actually circling back to like the slide, like a slide before here where that was like how like events are also like contributors to seasonal depression. Like this is more to like the students, but do you guys think like that school is also an event that like is like a factor in seasonal depression maybe for like students like starting the new semester or new year? I don't know. That's interesting. But yeah, let me know. Also, there's a Bethany in the chat. She said, I definitely feel the lack of sunlight right now. I recently went back on depression medication because of it. I wish we could put the sunlight bulbs in all the lights, but they are kind of expensive. SAD is real.
I've heard of like people using the little sunlight lamps, and I've never thought about like a specific light bulb and just putting it in like all the lights around the house. And I just want a ton of money to do that in every house in the Pacific Northwest. That's a great idea. I also got a personal message that said, I actually never experienced seasonal depression until quarantine because I wouldn't be able to go out and I was stuck at home and I felt alone during summer. And it's weird because I used to always love summer and enjoy it. Yeah, so kind of like a theme, I was gonna say that like a theme I'm noticing is a lot of people have experienced like the way it's kind of shown is by not wanting to do anything or just like kind of secluding yourself in your room. And so that makes a lot of sense because you add a pandemic where people like couldn't go out of their homes really. And so on top of like any other type of weather things that could be happening or other life events, that's a huge event that you just can't do things.
I also got another response. It says, yes, the weather makes me feel less productive and not want to have to do a bunch of schoolwork or wake up for school, which I feel that.
I want to say for myself, another thing is I'm just like permanently a really tired human. Like just all my friends have accepted that I'm just, if I cancel plans, I'm genuinely just really tired. But when like my mood's lower or like seasonal depression time, definitely like extra tired, which then can contribute to like the not feeling like there's enough time for anything. I'm like, what if I just slept the entire time? Like hibernation.
I think hibernation should be a thing sometimes. I kind of want to touch on this again about like having to deal with seasonal depression. I think another, like we talk about holidays and stuff. I used to hate holidays because it just reminded me of like my family and my extended family, and we just didn't like get along and stuff. So I think like I would dread the holidays, and I think that's when I started to develop seasonal depression, is because I wasn't looking forward to the set holidays with set family. And so I think family time can be like a tricky situation for a lot of different people because we all interpret family different as well too. And holidays always just like campaign to be like family, right? And like family time, and we have Thanksgiving for people who celebrate, or Christmas, and yeah.
I really like that idea of, you know, a lot of people like holidays are really stressful for a lot of people. Like I like that quote that you added, Melissa, of I can't just be happy because it's a happy time of the year, because it also like it's not always a happy time for everyone. Like different life events happen, or yeah, families always complicate, not always, but there's a lot of complicated families. I also got another direct message that said, I actually really like the darkness in the winter. It makes me feel really calm and less hectic. So even though I like summer, I feel gross sometimes in the sun for so long. Yeah. Same. I'm very horny during the summer.
Does anyone else have anything else to add, or any questions so far?
Sorry, I haven't shared yet. For me, kind of touching back on what Louis said, like fall for me, because it's school, but it's mainly like stress, and I get a little down.
Yeah, school's so stressful. I just feel like it shouldn't be that stressful, but it is. Well, you are welcome to still share your experience in the chat if you would like to. Did I just see another? Okay. Yeah, totally. We can still go back if like you're a person that's still trying to type, or if you want to unmute or anything. Also really appreciate the vulnerability here, because like people mentioned, sometimes talking about mental health can be really hard. Also, I just got another chat. I feel like during this time, I actually feel really stressed and tired, and especially since it gets dark early now, it loses my energy. Yeah, I was telling Melissa right before this that I drank an energy drink, and I'm like, I don't know why I did that, but it was dark, so I was like, yeah, let's go, energy drink, sure. Cool.
Yeah, I feel like you'll just look out the window and it's dark. You're like, what the heck? It was like 8 or 9. But then in reality, it's 5.
Yep.
All right. Well, moving on. thank you everyone for sharing. Like Miranda said, I feel like it's like for a lot of us, might put us in a vulnerable position, but appreciate you guys for sharing. Alrighty, another mentee, woohoo. So this is the code. We're gonna have a myth or fact debunking or true. Yeah. So if you guys want to go back onto Menti and enter the same code, I believe.
Yes.
Perfect.
And then this will have some sound, and I really hope it's not super loud, but if it like ruins your speakers, let me know and I'll stop sharing and like readjust. I know sometimes people show stuff and you're like, oh, didn't really need for it to be that loud. I don't know how to adjust sound on Menti. So all right, so there's gonna be 3 questions and there's a timer. I don't know how long the timer is, so hopefully it gives you guys enough answers. It's only 3 questions. Seasonal affective disorder can happen during any season. Question 2. So seasonal affective disorder only affects women, and that is super false. It's definitely a myth. There's one more. Question. I'm gonna exit that because I'm sick of the music. So the other question was if anyway, was that it is weak to show emotions, and it sounds like you guys really understood that to be true when we were oh my goodness, that it's not weak to show emotions and ask for help. As you guys were kind of talking about in the very beginning of that, you guys are like, yeah, we should talk about mental health more. And I know all 3 of those like myths or fact are like kind of cheesy, but they are really important reminders, right? That like seasonal affective disorder can happen during any season, and that it doesn't only affect women, and that it is definitely not weak to show emotions and ask for help. So thanks for doing our little like cheesy quiz thing. I'm sure you guys are. It's Friday. We just gave you a quiz. Sorry about that. Pass it back to Melissa.
I kind of want to touch base on those some of those questions. So the one that said it only affects women. That's not true, but it is more common in women than it is in males. So just want to throw that out there, and then also to touch base on like it's perceived as weak for individuals to seek out services. I think another thing that's talked about in like our culture is like men are perceived as weak for like showing their emotions, which is also very that's very true, like prevalent in our culture. But I think it's so important that they reach out and ask for help just as much as us women do. So I just wanted to throw that out there. All right, back to the PowerPoint. So we talked about like what seasonal affective disorder is. We talked about how it affects us and like some of the contributing factors. And so we want to like talk more about like kind of touching base of what someone mentioned. Like we talk about it, but then they feel like we don't necessarily, like individuals don't necessarily like give them the right resources afterwards. So we wanted to touch base on some coping skills that we could touch, like you guys can take with you after this. So what is a coping skill? It's just different methods to use with stressful or unpleasant situations. And then it's daily strategies that are used to help deal and process with our emotions. And they can look different for everybody, just depending on what their main concern or main focus is, or the type of event that they're dealing with. So just a little brainstorm or discussion. What are some coping skills that you guys can think of that you guys use or you've heard of before? And feel free to put them in the chat as well. I don't think we did a Menti for this one, but.
We did not. I know we had an idea of if people felt maybe more comfortable doing it maybe in like a small group brainstorm, or if we wanted to go into the whole chat. I know we talked about potentially having a poll. Did that happen?
All right. Yeah, I don't think we made a poll, but
you feel strongly or like have any opinion at all on if you would rather like do this as like a big group or in like small breakout rooms, go ahead and can you just like type that in the chat?
So the different options we can do is like doing a breakout room and just discussing this, or just having a big group discussion. Oh, Melody said one of her coping skills is reading. I think reading's a good one. Okay, big group discussion. Perfect, awesome, thank you guys. Coping skills is journaling and writing letters to myself. I think that's a really important one, just having like being able to like self-reflect as well with journaling.
Just to add on, again, if you can type it in the chat, or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can also send us a direct message to any of us or to any of the other interns. Please feel free to do so.
And then some other ones that got put in the chat because you guys are on top of it is one of mine is sleeping, then organizing my thoughts when I wake. I like that, especially like the organizing thoughts once you wake, right? Sometimes you just gotta take a nap. Something as simple as taking a nice hot shower while jamming out to my songs. Yes, both of those as individuals are amazing, so combining them. Journaling and music, always a dynamic duo. Some of mine are reading and listening to music. I'm hearing a lot of music. Taking time for myself and limiting social media that isn't necessarily healthy for me. Sometimes social media can be good to like distract you. Other times it's like, okay, I've kind of been on here for too much. This is real sad. I like it. One of my coping skills is listening to the rain in my earbud. Ooh, I like that. One of mine is to listen to music and calm my mind. There it is. Because I get super anxious and music gives me something to focus on. Yeah, it's a really good distraction. I like journaling. I also listen to music and play my piano. Ooh, love that. These are so good. I love coping skills, you guys. I'm like a giant nerd for them. I'm like, yes, these things. Putting my thoughts into writing. Absolutely. I would say binge watching shows, but during our first session on self-care, they told us that could be escapism. So, well, y'all are paying attention to those first ones. Look at you go. Taking a walk while listening. Oh, how did I get this to scroll down? Where'd I go? Taking a walk while listening to music through my buds, self-care, do something fun. I like to paint and just vibe out to music. Art's a really good one, especially if it's like one that you don't really have to think about, or if you're, kind of anxious, something that you do have to think about, kind of distracting. Working on a puzzle. Now I scroll all the way to the top.
Crying, being able to feel my emotions when I'm ready. I think crying could be a very good coping skill. Sometimes you just have to let it all out and let you, like you said, like let yourself feel those emotions. I got a couple of messages. So get moving, exercising, and meditation. I think those are really good too. Keeping active. And then someone also said photography. But that can be very calming.
I got another one that says hanging out with my dog. Yes. I like that a lot of these too don't really require, like, sometimes it can be really a good coping skill. Like for myself, sometimes a coping skill will be like going out and spending time with a friend, getting coffee, because I've been like isolating so much. But I like that a lot of these are like things that are pretty accessible that you can do. I love that. Watching movies and listening to music. Hearing a lot of listening to music. There's some other ones because I'm like super on like this whole gain new coping skills personal thing. It sounds super lame and it's super lame and super cliche, but I just got past the fact that it's super lame and cliche and got really into like deep breathing. But I remember when somebody first told me that, I was like, you're telling me to breathe? Like, is that really this like coping skill that you're trying to get me to do? But it's absolutely like helpful, and I like it too because you can do it like for a minute, or you can do it for like 5 minutes, or like whatever just feels best for you. Also love puzzles, and Bethany and Alma, yes, puzzles are so good.
I like the 1,000-piece ones because it just takes so much time.
I'm scared of like large puzzles that'll take too long though, because my cats are monsters, and I like imagine you are about to finish that puzzle and your cat stole a piece. Like that's my biggest fear.
All right, any more skills that you guys? Oh.
I can also add one really quick. To me, I mean, I also watch a lot of movies and listening to music. And shout out to I think it was Kelly that said listening to the rain. I listen to like rain sounds all the time, or like sounds like the wind touching grass, leaves when I study or when I try to go to sleep, or sounds of waves. Just I don't know, weird sounds. Not weird, but just like sounds that they're just calming to me. And I also, another coping skill of mine is like just taking a walk, or like just breathing fresh air, I guess. It's really nice, like just taking a big deep breath, opening my nostrils.
Here's real good. Sorry, Melissa, you go.
Oh, as Amanda said, breathing with your diaphragm and controlling breathing when getting anxious. Yes, going back to like what Miranda said as well, just focusing on breathing when we are feeling anxious.
Another one that I just thought of like specifically to like being anxious, because I'm really into coping skills, that like if you're in public and you're feeling some type of way, like what do I do now because all my art stuff's at home. Another really interesting one that I recently learned is the idea of just like kind of like tapping or like messing with like your fingers. And that can be a way to kind of like distract you, because then you can like be aware of like whatever surface you're touching, but you can also kind of do it discreetly, which is nice if you're like ever nervous and you're in public, just like, oh yeah, I'm just like kind of touching my fingers, or like you can do it under a table. I do that a lot. Yeah, coping skills are good. And one thing that's really cool about coping skills, and I like that there's such a variety in here, is that going back to also that like idea of, so what do we do with our mental health? Usually like you can do coping skills when you're like super anxious or like seasonal depression's hitting extra hard or something, but also sometimes they can be like things that you need to do for yourself every day that can help with like your everyday life. And so I know for some people, like they consider their daily routine to be a coping skill. So like knowing that when they wake up, they're going to brush their teeth and they're going to shower, and like knowing that they took care of themselves and kind of have that routine can be super beneficial, especially like long term. Or like taking that time to journal, it can be super beneficial when you're like up here, not, or I guess probably like more down here, not feeling super great, but it can also be helpful like on a day-to-day for maintenance for coping. So also throwing those out there. Any other thoughts, ideas? Melissa, click to the next part, so I'll stop talking.
Oh, no, I just wanted to throw it up there. You guys like pretty much covered a lot of the coping skills that I had briefly put in here. So like journaling, reading, drawing, creating to-do lists, meditating, and exercising, which you guys all like covered. So very positive coping skills.
Sorry, I just have a quick question. What is journaling exactly? Is journaling like writing anything, or like is it like well, what is that? What is journaling exactly? So the people who journal, you can also, who said journaling was the thing. What I'm not really like sure what it is. I'd like to know.
I'm sure someone else in the chat can explain it very well. So I'm gonna give people a moment to type it if they want to, and then I can elaborate, because again, refer back to the really giant nerd for coping skills. Ooh, that's a good one. Oversharing to a journal only you will ever read. Yeah. I like that use of like the idea of like oversharing, because I know sometimes when you're like, the difference between journaling is sometimes when you're talking to a friend and using them as a support, sometimes you still feel this need to kind of like filter and censor, like, hey, I maybe want them to know I'm kind of sad, kind of want to hang out and get coffee. Do I want to let them know that I didn't want to leave my room for the past week? I don't know. And so sometimes writing in a journal can help you feel like you're able to share with people, but also not like have to feel like that awkwardness of like maybe feel like you're burdening people. Samantha wrote that there are various prompts to reflect on experiences and emotions, or can be freestyling or venting. There's also specific journals filled with self-improvement and reflection prompts. I also use a journal for manifesting and a place to keep my affirmations. See, I knew somebody in the chat would describe it better. Basically, it's whatever you want in all these different ways. So I know some people like they call it journaling, but they just do it on like a single piece of paper and then they throw it away. So they don't necessarily like have a journal, but they're still writing.
Thank you for the responses, guy. I really appreciate it. Now I know what it is.
Any more questions? I also love how journaling is like so broad, so like we can interpret it different ways and like journal at our own prompts, or just like even just like a diary. So I think it just looks different for everyone, but it does. I think it could be a very great coping skill. Okay, excuse me. Moving on. So after hearing some ideas of what other people might have used or what you practiced today, what coping skill will you try to implement after today? So if you didn't have any, what coping skill would you take away? If you have a couple, but you kind of want to try something new, which one do you think that you would practice moving after today? And I think Miranda will share her screen now. I believe it's a drawing mentee, not a text, insert text one. Alma said, I will also like to give journaling a try. I think when you first start off, it can be a little bit weird because you're like, what do I write about, you know, when you first journal? But I think maybe find like an easy prompt, or just even as small as like just describing your day and like how your day went, and like if you felt certain feelings and kind of elaborating on that. Same, but I want to direct more emotions and feelings into movement and exercise to be healthier and more confident in myself. I think that's good. I think that having the goal of like being more confident in, not necessarily like you're working out to do this, but you're working out to like be more happy with yourself, and I think that's great.
Theoretically, you should be able to, it says like ask a question, but I changed it. So now it'll say like ask a question, but you can enter in your answers there. You may only be able to type in one now though. And I'll start sharing screen if people decide that like using Menti.
I think I should try exercising. It will help with being more body positive and make me feel productive. Yeah, I definitely think exercising, just being more active, can be a great coping skill and also like stress reliever as well. I hear a lot of people saying like, oh, like go to the gym to blow off some steam. So I think that's good, especially if you are feeling overwhelmed or anxious. Also, feel free to unmute and say anything as well if you have any coping skills that you might take away after today.
And then there are some on Menti. So I'm not going to share screen because the question kind of pulls up weird. But let me make this work. Okay. So I would like to give painting a try as a coping skill. I think it really helped clear my mind. I like to try journaling with a specific prompt every day, especially in the afternoon. I do like the prompt idea. I forgot about that till that was added into what journaling is. I'll try puzzling. I usually get anxious throughout, but really satisfying once you finish. Yeah. I wonder if like incorporating some other type of like coping skill while puzzling, or like if, you know, listening to music or something could help with anxiousness. I don't know. I'm just throwing out random things. Journaling, spending time with loved ones when I'm isolating so much, have more intentional and productive time with myself. Journal. There's also one other one that I totally accidentally dismissed because I didn't figure out how to work it. Oh, I found it. I'd really like to give journaling a try. It looks like there's some in the chat over here. Personal message. So I want to try painting, even though I'm not good at art. And I've also used breathing exercises before, so I want to try more of those too. I won't read the to everyone chat because I don't know what Melissa already read.
Someone also said, I want to try journaling and breathing exercises. That's something that I'm definitely going to take away as well, like breathing exercises too. So.
And Melissa, for sake of time, do we want to do that? No, we should still do it. We'll make it work. Just kidding.
Samantha also said there are nice journals at Michael's for like $5. Check out Michael's. I'm sure Dollar Store has some pretty snazzy ones too. Okay. Yeah, for the sake of time, we go to the next question.
Real quick, I had another one that says I might want to write in a journal something happy, things that happen in my day, and it can even be the smallest thing. Yeah, that's a great one. I forgot about that, like the words, gratitude journals. The idea of just like, oh yeah, one thing that was good today, or that's just good in general. Those can be super nice for like helping reframe your brain. Especially on days when you're like, there's nothing to be grateful for. You can be like, oh, that I got up and I showered. Like that little bit of reframing.
Okay, tying it back to mental health and just like the Hispanic community and BIPOC community, we wanted to reel it back into like our services that we provide and just like the resources that we have. So before we get into our resources, we wanted to ask a question. How was mental health mentioned in your household? Whether it's now or whether it was growing up, or even if it was mentioned, I believe you can share it on Menti, right? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So
let me get to it and make sure that I have it on the right setting this time.
okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put the code again, just in case you guys don't have it.
If I messed it up again, let me know. Claims it's working. So how have your parents, or it can just be like family in general, talked about mental health? And I'm gonna let Melissa be in charge of this one too. I say let, but it's just I'm making her. I said no.
So Jair and Louise, feel free to chime in as well if you guys want to put any thoughts after answers are put up. I can share briefly. Mental health was definitely not brought up in my household whatsoever. Like even when I had feelings of feeling anxious and I mentioned it to my parents, they kind of just brushed it off, and so I didn't get involved in services until I went away in college. Actually, like when I was away from my family, because it wasn't perceived as something real or like something that I was like dealing with, and so it was just not really mentioned in my household, at least. But like now I'm like super open and I like talk to my siblings about it because I didn't have that conversation growing up, but I think it's super important to know the resources and services that are there for you. Yes, not much. Oh, sorry.
Nope, you're on it.
Not much, only because I talk about it, otherwise never. Yeah, it's so true. It was talked about as something that wasn't real or an issue, just something I needed to get over or grow up and deal with it. I think that's a huge one, like just something that you needed to get over, right? Like you won't, like you'll just go over feeling anxious, or you feel like you'll get over feeling like depressed and whatnot. So I think that's kind of going back to like how we're being perceived as like weak for actually being open about our emotions, because we just get told like deal with it, and then at the end of the day sometimes.
I'd also like to add to it. Yeah, I don't think my family ever talked about mental health when I was young, or even in my during my teenage years, maybe because I started experiencing mental health problems myself a little bit, which was when again it started getting brought up. But more importantly, I feel like the older I grow, even though it's still not talked about as much, or even though I'll talk about it to my parents and they might dismiss it or something, or they might act like it's not real. I feel like, especially like with like certain family members, or like even with like my mom or my dad, I feel like I can see signs of depression, or like I can see that they've also been depressed, or they still get depressed, or they have like anxiety episodes and things like that. And and also with like other family members, but I feel like since they grew up thinking that it wasn't real, they don't want to admit that it's affecting them. But which is unfortunate, but I also feel lucky in a way to know that, you know, I understand what that is. Like, and I know, and because I understand it, I can deal with it better instead of suppressing it. So
Yes, for sure. I like how you brought up the fact of like how you can see those tendencies in your parents, like knowing that those like you feeling anxious, how it feels within you, and like being able to notice that in our parents is also very huge too, because they don't acknowledge it as it being like mental health issue or anything like that. It just might be like a problem that they're dealing with. To be honest, growing up in a super old-fashioned and traditional home, mental health wasn't a topic ever talked about, but I did eventually start talking to my cousins, siblings, and friends about it. I think that's so important, being able to break the cycle of having it brought up in your household. I see that Samantha has her hand up. Did you want to say something, Samantha?
Yeah, I was just gonna talk about at least for like my family. My mom's Native American, my dad's from Mexico. So I think that I definitely saw differences since my mom has always been in the States, so she acknowledges it a little bit more. Still, it's pretty taboo for like natives as well. It's just kind of like, you know, we're sad, but that's about it. It's like it's life, you know. But I think for my dad, it was a lot different. So him growing up in Mexico, he's been working since he was like 5 years old. And I think for him, it's like Louise had said, like I can see tendencies in him as well, but I honestly just don't think that he knows his emotions, if that makes sense. Like I don't think that he was ever one from like, you know, growing up in Mexico in poverty and having to work at such a young age and having to help take care of his family, but also like being a man in Mexico. And it's like men are already not given allowed to like express their feelings or feel their emotions and stuff as is, even in the States. But like for him as a young age, like I just don't think, since he grew up so young, I just don't think he has even been able to like distinguish his different emotions or know really how he feels, just because he was never given that space. So I've definitely seen that a lot with growing up. And I think that my whole parents kind of thought was like, well, I mean, there's not really time to be depressed or anxious. Like you got to take care of your family, you got to go to work, you got to do, you know, all these different things. Like you got to do life basically. And so I think that now they're getting more comfortable talking about things, you know, and my dad's like 60 years old. So it's like, I also feel like it's never too late for them to also recognize and find coping mechanisms for themselves. So I definitely am more like impressed with the newer generations, because I feel that mental health awareness, even just through like social media or through like friends and stuff, has become more of a topic. So I feel like in that it's just kind of brought more awareness to like our families as well.
Yes, I think you made some really good points, especially like being from two different cultures and like how that affected you growing up. So we're just going to speed through these because I know we have a couple more slides to get through. My parents tried to force me to spend time with them by punishing me if I didn't, claiming that it wasn't good for me to be by myself. Now I struggle with them. Sometimes, especially if we are from a big household, it's really hard to be by ourselves and have our own room and like be actually present alone. My dad has had really bad panic attacks in the past, and my mom's sister was diagnosed with depression and anxiety a couple of months ago. So my mom reads articles about mental health and shares with us. Okay, that's awesome. Like just being aware because you're family members. My parents used to never talk to me about it, but they started talking about it like 2 years ago, especially my dad, since he would ask me how I'm feeling emotionally when he had the chance to talk to me. That's great. The conversation about it started when I was experiencing visible symptoms of poor mental health. They feel like it's easy to get over and ignore it a lot. I think it's a very common theme that we're seeing. My parents laughed when I told them that I wanted to start getting counseling, and now they were not supportive. They would laugh and joke, saying we just needed to work harder. Oof, that one hit home because yeah, like when you are open about it, and then when your parents are like not supportive, I think that just kind of like makes you like discouraged a lot to actually get counseling. But I hope you did sign up for counseling. My family didn't think mental health was a real thing and would tell me to just get over it. I broke the cycle by talking about it, and my parents both got help with their mental health issues now. Wow, that's awesome. That is a great way to end this mentee. Because I feel like sometimes, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Nope, you go.
Oh, like sometimes we need to like push our parents to do that because they were never pushed like that when they were kids, or never offered that when they were kids growing up.
I was just gonna say I have a real quick question. I know like we're kind of short on time, but going back to like the initial conversation of like we talk about it a lot, but then like the now what, I'm really interested in. It sounds like a lot of families were just like, no, you can't talk about this, or we can't get help, or like mental health, you just get over it. I'm kind of curious. It sounds like, I know Melissa, you shared a little bit about how you were able to then start that conversation with your family, but like, how do you get over or like move past that to still take care of your mental health? Because as everyone was talking in the beginning, super important, but like we're around our families a lot.
I think for me, I was just like super open about it, and like I knew it made my mom super uncomfortable sometimes, and so I'd be even more open about it. So she just like finally understood, and like I just like tell her like, oh, like she'll be, what are you doing? Like, oh, at therapy, you know, like, so I'm just like super open about it, and so she has to accept it, I feel like. But it took some years to actually like kind of get them to understand, specifically my mom, to understand where I was coming from, what I was going through. So yeah. I don't know if anyone else would like to share or add in the chat.
And then on the Menti, I won't be sharing screen while we talk about these, but on the Menti, it should have it open to where you can write in if you have any questions for us, and we can try to get to those. Just want to throw that out there. That's an option, or you can always type them in the chat. And then, so we talked a lot about like the idea of like, so what now, right? And then coping skills can help with a lot of the day-to-day. And those are specifically for like, we talked a lot about the ones that are for like, if you're feeling depressed or experiencing, I totally just seasonal depression, you know, the thing that we're talking about this whole time, forgot the name, and those types of things. But also there's a ton of resources for mental health as a whole in the community. And so I won't, for lack of time, like won't have a ton of time to go over like too much about what Melissa and I do, but the basic version is that we do work for a mental health agency. Specifically, Melissa and I work with ages 16 through 26, but our agency works with people of all ages. So that could be yourself, it could be family, anyone. And I have the number. So if you're interested in mental health services through Columbia River, you're able to call the main clinic, and that's that number on here. And we'll also get this sent out to you guys. So you're able to call them, but also you're able to text or call me and Melissa, because I know sometimes that can be a lot less intimidating if you even just want to hear about services and be like, hey, maybe I don't know, you guys mentioned it, maybe I'm interested, I don't know. You can totally like call us and we can talk more about it. I feel like, I know at least for myself, that's a lot less intimidating than just calling some random clinic number and being like, one therapy, please. There are also a ton of different mental health agencies within the Vancouver and just Clark County area as a whole. And so down here, it says you can reach out to your primary care doctor. A lot of the time they will have resources, and because generally, you know, they know about your insurance, they're able to help direct you to a therapist that's within your network. So that's a really cool, generally easy way. And then moving up just for like mental health, like crisis type stuff. So there's these two cool things called CVAB, which stands for Consumer Voices Are Born, and Clark County Teen Talk. And both of these are really awesome because they are resources in the community that are peer-led, so people that have also been through mental health stuff. And they are people that you're able to talk to. They are not suicide hotlines. So just like, they are not the people that you call if you are feeling suicidal or contemplating suicide, but they are like, hey, it's what time? It's 8 p.m. and I am not feeling super great. I just like need a person to talk to about this. You can reach out to either of these, and the hours are kind of weird. So they're on here. Again, will get sent out. Teen Talk's really cool specifically because you can also text them, or if you prefer social media, you can like message them on social media. And then Louise said, please share them if you know anyone who might need any of these resources too. Absolutely. And then, since I did mention, if you are ever contemplating suicide, I like to think that most people know about it, but just in case you don't, there's a national suicide prevention hotline that you can call, and they can get you connected with services. Specifically in Vancouver, we have this really amazing thing called, it's literally just called Crisis, like it's the crisis team. And this can also work if you ever call 911 and you're like not feeling okay. You can just request a crisis team, which is really nice because it's a group of people that are there for if somebody is contemplating suicide, and they're able to come in, and it's not like the cops coming in, because we know that that's generally not helpful if you are not feeling super great. Also, if you are ever like, hey, I'm not doing great, I need a space to be safe, or I need to get into some type of something, the emergency room is a really good go-to. Like, you can just show up to the emergency room and be like, hey, I'm not feeling great, I need like inpatient, or I just like need a space to be because I'm feeling suicidal. It like, you can just walk in there. And I didn't know that till I started this job. So I really like to tell people that's really easy. Yeah, that's my spiel.